Hey there guys, it's Tuna. Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, I am an illustrator and comic artist, and I like to make videos where I just talk about the kinds of stuff that I'm up to and my business and stuff like that. So thank you all for coming by. Today I wanted to put together kind of an AMA style video. Oh, and as an aside, I am sick right now. So if you hear my voice and it sounds a little bit different than usual, that is why. But I didn't want to put off this video any longer than I had to, so I'm here with the questions that I got from Instagram and Twitter, where you can find me on Instagram as @TunaSnaps and on Twitter as @TunaYo. So, without further ado, let's get into the questions. I got a couple of people asking me how I started with art. Okay, so, from the beginning. I've been drawing ever since I was very, very young. It has always been a hobby passion of mine, and it's something that I always knew was part of who I was, whether or not it was going to be something I did professionally. So I would do all kinds of sketches on paper and stuff while I was at school, and, you know, just occupying my free time creating stories and characters and worlds. And as I got older, I got involved in an online community that some of you may remember called Gaiaonline. It is still around, but I don't think it's quite what it was when I was a teenager. And from there, I started taking commissions, basically, for the digital currency of Gaiaonline, and I would do art for people and get art from people, and just started to build my, I guess, professional ability to create work for others from being an active member there. I also made all kinds of connections, that some of which still last to this day, and got to know like the whole social media cycle before posting on social media really started to become a thing. From that point on, I started to consider art as something I wanted to do as a career. This was around the time I was graduating high school, and I just didn't really have anything else that I was interested in, to be perfectly honest. I didn't really want to go to school or, you know, be educated on, take an English degree or whatever it was. I did end up going a couple of times to college. I started, originally I took a general admission course that lasted for about a semester, and then I went back a year or so later and took an art and design course for a semester. And then I left that again and went back to more of a community college and started taking some classes there for an illustration program. And ultimately, none of those post-secondary ventures really led anywhere, because all throughout this time, I had been starting to build a business out of my art. I started by looking on job listings, on things like Craigslist, and basically sending out my portfolio to everything that seemed somewhat relevant to my field of interest or my scope of ability. And from there, I was able to land a couple of gigs that allowed me to start doing art on either a part-time or a full-time basis. And anyway, that's kind of another question. Talking about all the stuff that I've done as a freelancer. I might make another video talking about that in the future, because I feel like everybody's art, you know, journey is different, and it doesn't matter what it looks like, because as long as you're doing what you love and, you know, you're thriving, or at the very least surviving, then there's no shame in whatever you end up doing. Alright, so that was a bit of a long one. The next question will be advice for new artists. So, alright, if you are a new artist, I talk about this a lot on my stream over at twitch.tv/artbytuna, where I talk about people who come to me and they ask, "Yo, Tuna, I need some advice on how to get better." And every time I feel like they're expecting me to give them some kind of miracle answer where it's like, well, you just need to do this, this, and this. And in a way, it kind of is a miracle answer, because you need to study your basics. That is the thing that all beginner artists need to do. And I know, as a person who started out in the anime and manga world and kind of worked my way to where I am now from there, that I actually skipped a lot of learning basics until I was pretty far along in my illustration not career, but like personal career. And I had to go back and relearn all of those basics, kind of on my own, a little bit through college, and then a lot through just kind of getting a sense of where my weaknesses are, and that studying was the only way I was going to get better. So to all new artists out there, please, please, please study your basics, do photo studies, do life drawing, do figure drawing, take color theory, and just take it seriously. If you want to improve, if you study hard, you will improve so much faster than someone who is just drawing like for fun from their imagination. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but if you want to improve as a new artist, don't forget your basics. All right, so the next question is, what is art to you? So what is art to me? And this is a nice one. It's a bit philosophical. Put my little thinking cap on. But I think that art is just, it's a compulsion to me, honestly. It's just something that I cannot help but do, probably out of having developed the habit of drawing all the time ever since I was, 8, 9, 10 years old. It is a part of who I am, and I couldn't imagine not drawing. I mean, there's parts of me that sometimes can imagine having a career other than drawing, but I would still always have some kind of artistic expression worked into my life. And yeah, that's really the only answer that I have to that question. I wish I could come up with something a little more dreamy, but it's an instinct, it's a habit that I can't stop doing. Next question, I got a couple of these as well. What is my inspiration? This is a really big question, and I think I could probably go into, again, a whole video talking about this, but my biggest inspirations are comics, for one. I've always loved comics. I grew up reading Archie comics, and then I got into manga, lots of shoujo manga, and then I got into Batman comics, and then from there, it sort of blossomed into an overall love for comics and everything that comics is. But other inspirations include fashion. I think if you've seen my work, you're pretty aware of that already. I really enjoy the style and integrating that into my work. As well, I find all of my peers to be incredibly inspirational. People who are doing things similar to me or different from me, and like how their uniqueness makes them special, and how I can lean into my uniqueness to make my work special, and all kinds of things like that. But I also try and branch out into different mediums for inspiration. I'm a very big fan of movies and film. That's something that I've carried with me for most of my life as well. In fact, when I was in high school, I did not take high school art. Instead, I took high school film, and I feel like that had a really profound effect on me and my love of filmmaking. Yeah, I'd say those are the biggest inspirations. So, next question up is, how often do I practice in my sketchbook? Now, this is a cool question, and the short answer is probably once or twice a week. I sit down with my sketchbook and do some drawing in there. But now that I have my iPad, I sort of use that as an auxiliary sketchbook, and I'm doing some of the stuff that I would have done in my sketchbook now on the iPad. So factoring that in, I'd say probably 4 or 5 days a week I'm doing sketching in my sketchbook / on my iPad. And a lot of the time this isn't exactly active practice. That's actually a video that is going to be coming out soon, hopefully, when I record it, is a video on active versus passive practice, which again, if you've been to my streams, I've rambled on about many, many times, because this is something that I think people don't really realize or think about all that often. But anyway, we'll get into that later. But a lot of the practice I'm doing is passive, which means I'm just kind of drawing or sketching or coming up with ideas or doodling, what have you. I'm not actually putting my nose to the grindstone and doing work to improve my art. But anyway, the short answer to the question is I practice / draw in my sketchbook most of the days of the week, and if I'm not, then it's usually just because I'm working at the comic book store, or I'm otherwise busy socializing, or what have you. All right, next question, how to recharge from burnout. Now, this is something that I know all artists feel eventually. I'd say if you don't feel like that ever, then, you know, you are a small minority of people, because most artists reach a point where they feel like, oh, I can't do this anymore, or oh man, I've run out of creative juice. And I think that it's just a natural part of the cycle of being a creative is to be burnt out. And so when I'm asked how I recharge from burnout, the truth is that I just sort of like lean into it. And it's not that it doesn't stress me out or give me anxiety, especially when I have like deadlines or something, or work that needs to be done. I'll often just continue doing the work, because it's not like when I'm burnt out or when I'm creatively drained that I can't draw anymore. Like, I can still do the work, it's just that my ideas or my concepts suffer. So sometimes you just have to put up with that in order to meet a deadline. So I would definitely advise just like forgiving yourself for needing the time to recharge, finding something else to entertain yourself with until you're ready to draw again, something to take your mind off it. I really like video games. I think a lot of people also really like reading, which is something I'm trying to get a little more into this year. And then I also like to go out on adventures, so getting out of the house, going into nature. I'm really lucky that I live in a very beautiful place. Or otherwise, just being around people, trying to go out into public, maybe even bringing a sketchbook to sketch in public, stuff like that. There's always options. Whatever you find makes you feel inspired without pressuring yourself to do any work, because if you don't have to, like it's not for a job, then I don't think you're doing yourself any good to force yourself to do something. Alright, looking at my questions here, I didn't want this video to be too long, so I'm gonna jump into, I think, the kind of fun questions. So that's gonna be it for the art questions, and this is gonna be a little more about me. So the first one is mustard or relish? Now, the real answer to this question is, of course, ketchup, because ketchup is the superior condiment at all times. But I really like mustard, especially granny mustard, Dijon mustard, whole grain mustard, stuff like that. Super, super tasty. In fact, it was one of the things I actually hated when I was a kid, and took me a really long time to get into, but I do enjoy it now. On that same topic, my favorite food ever, I feel like if you... Ever is a strong word, right, people? Ever is a strong word. So something that I've liked always is spaghetti bolognese. It, as a child, was my favorite dish, and anytime we went out to a restaurant with my family, that would be what I would buy if it was on the menu. I wanted to try all the spaghetti bologneses and, like, judge restaurants based on how good their spaghetti bolognese was. And TBH, I still do this now. I'm actually going out this Saturday for dinner for my birthday, and I know we're going to an Italian place, and I'm gonna get the spaghetti bolognese. So I think that's like the honest answer to that question. But food is like my favorite thing in the whole entire world, so I could probably ramble on about food for days. Moving on. If I was a monster girl, what species would I be? So my favorite monster girl species is slime girls. Maybe some of you know that. It's kind of something I don't talk about a lot, but slime girls are my favorites. I feel like they embody the feelings of anxiety and depression that I can sometimes struggle with, and there's something about like drippy, like oozing people that is relatable to me. I don't know why, but I'd say that that's what I would be if I was a monster girl, leaving a trail behind wherever I go, for better or for worse, and just generally being malleable to different shapes depending on the situation. Yeah, so that's all the questions that I have to answer for you today. Thank you so much for coming by my video. Again, be sure to check out my links below so you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, etc. I hope that this was fun or informative in some way for you. If you have any further questions for me, please feel welcome to leave them in the comments, and I will address them in a future video. Big shout out to my patrons. Without you guys, I would not be able to be making videos, would not be able to be supporting myself as an independent artist, so thank you again for all that you do for me all the time, and yeah, I will be seeing you all next time. Take it easy, guys.